Has been placed in conference. You are the first caller to join the conference. Please wait for further participants.
Right, everyone, the mics are hot. Mr. McGee, you have the gavel.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Tuncology Town Council meeting. I hope everybody finds themselves safe and secure during this this unusual time that we're going through. At this time, I'd like to have a roll call by the clerk, please.
Nicholas Gorham.
Forgot about it.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Nick. Madam Clerk, would you be able to do roll call?
Kerry McGee,
Here.
Greg LaBoissoniere,
Here.
Gary Cody,
Here.
Ann Dixon,
Here.
Deb Bacon,
Here.
Nicholas Gorham,
Here.
Ed Wazika.
Present.
Okay, the next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all would rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance, I'll lead. Life, Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
and to the republic which stands under God,
one nation,
indivisible,
God,
with liberty and justice for all.
For all.
Okay, thank you very much. The public does have the opportunity to watch this via live stream. The next item on the agenda would be the item B, would be the work session on the town budget. We did receive our budget. I'm gonna, rather than me go on, I'm gonna leave it to the town manager to give us, I think he prepared a presentation. And town manager, if you would like to present your presentation before we start a work session, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, sir. If everyone could please mute their phones if they're not asking a question or something. We're getting some feedback. But I'd like to thank everyone this evening. I'm going to just begin by saying this has been the strangest, out-of-touch budget process that we've ever had due to the ongoing COVID-19 process. I apologize for the way it's going. The problem is that every day is just a different day, and we don't know what's going on most of the time. In fact, that's how I'm going to begin with my presentation. I'm going to begin with what we don't know. And at this point, what we don't know is the revenue from the meal and beverage taxes, revenue from the hotel tax, telephone tax. We don't even know at this point if the state will continue with the motor vehicle phase out, and if they do, how much. We're still waiting, obviously, for a while on school aid. Whether any of the COVID-19 assistance funds will be able to be used to offset lost revenue, that is still up and down. All of that plays part of the Coventry tax collection rate on and which has a big effect on it. How will a high number of unemployed in Rhode Island affect the collection rate? We don't know. Will the state relax some of the unfunded mandates? We've requested this through the League of Cities and Towns. Hopefully they will. But again, we're still waiting for guidance from the state at this point. Will the state change, modify any of the statutory budget requirements? Again, nothing's come down from the state. We're inquiring. I've got meetings 3 times a week now with the League of Cities and Towns. In reference to general questions, we have 1 a week in reference to the communities that have the FTM and or all-day referendum style. And we're allegedly going to be getting some further assistance and guidance starting next week. But at this point, it's still a waiting game on all of these questions. So what do we know? What we do know is, at this point, our collection rate has stayed pretty much steady with what it's been in prior years. We're in pretty good shape. Our expenditures are down several percentage points. We instituted a freeze about a month ago, and it seems to be working. The upcoming next couple of weeks will be a big factor for what we can assume on a tax collection rate. This is the end of the fourth quarter, which goes until the 15th of May, and as we get closer to that, we'll be able to determine what we can look at as far as projecting a reasonable collection rate. We're in a reval year. with this. So, again, as of right now, our projected tax rates for next year or for the next budget year would be somewhere around 1880 ballpark. And again, don't hold me to these numbers. These are ballpark based on need for final numbers, but about 1880, 1,000 on the new valuation for residential, and commercial is somewhere in the ballpark of around 2260. Motor vehicle remains the same at the 1875, and the tangible is also at that same 1880 ballpark. We need those state revenue and aid numbers to produce a valid and accurate budget. We're waiting on those. We also know that a 1% reduction in the collection rate equates to a loss of approximately $700,000 in collected property tax, which in turn obviously has a big effect on our finalized budget. But the other thing we do know is, as of today, we have 180,000 Rhode Island residents that were formerly working 6 weeks ago, no longer working. And with a employment numbers of 540,000 approximately were working that 6 weeks ago, we're looking at about a third of the Rhode Island workforce is now unemployed versus a mere 6 weeks ago. What that effect will be on tax collection is unknown again at this point. So as you can see, there's a lot more unknown than known on what we've done. What we've been working on over the last several weeks was to take that original budget that we presented to the town at $33 million and change, which covered the municipal budget, the bond indebtedness costs, all the pension cost, all of the municipal side of the budget. And in that budget, there was approximately $1.05 million that were mandatory increases in that budget based on pension increases, insurance increases, electric service increases. So all of those increases amounted to slightly over $1 million added onto the budget. By the way, you have this display in your packets. If anybody's inquiring, it's right in with your book. Okay, so what does that mean? Our projected revenue increases prior to COVID-19, where we were projecting over $1 million in increased revenue out of those taxes and the meal tax, beverage tax, hotel tax, all of those, we were projecting over $1 million increased. Now, right now, that's all gone. That's all wiped out. We think we've been able to get some decent numbers at this point on those, even though we haven't got any guidance from the state. We're working on basically taking the numbers from last year and working to where they might be. So we've got that. Our collection rate last year was 99.5%. Phenomenal rate. Where we're going to be, that's a big unknown, and that's going to be the big deciding factor, and we're waiting on this. We don't know. We should have some better information in 2 weeks. Our projected municipal budget pre-COVID-19 was $33,321,572. We have gone back. I have eliminated over $1 million, actually over $1.1 million has been stripped out of that originally projected and given budget. We now have a municipal budget in your booklet of $32,226,312. And as you can see, compared to last year's, it's just about $50,000 over last year's budget. So we are at a zero increase, even with over $1 million in increased costs that we've been able to eliminate. Now, how have we done that? It hasn't been easy, and it's not going to be easy for anyone. We've eliminated over $300,000 out of the DPW budget, the original budget, by eliminating materials, personnel in one case, and just reducing those costs down to hopefully what we feel is the absolute best, the bottom line that we can. The next reduction that we made, and this one I spent a lot of time back and forth and going at it, we're reducing the Parks and Recreation budget by over $420,000. My original plan and thought was to eliminate the recreation side of it completely, and there'd be an additional $200,000 in savings. Hopefully that won't be necessary depending on how things go in the next couple of weeks. But that $420,000 reduction includes an elimination of all summer programs, summer camp. We were advised yesterday by the Department of Health during a conference call with the state that there is very little likelihood that we'd be able to run these programs. And if we could, we'd have to reduce it to 50 at most. And we'd have to keep the social distancing, the masks, and everything else, which, in their words, it's not going to be doable. So that the fields are not open. They're not open to organized activities. They're not projected to be open, again, based on guidance from the state. They're not going anywhere. The police department, there's over a $300,000 cut in the police department, and that includes elimination of new vehicles for them for the upcoming year. It eliminates one of the 2 new officers that was sworn in 2 days ago has decided to go with another department. That position will not be filled at this point. There are also some other reductions in some of the other line items which you have in the budget. By the way, this budget will be posted online tomorrow for the citizens, so you can go through it and review it. There's a $60,000 reduction in the tax assessor's office, and that's the majority of where those cuts came from. They are all right there. You'll note that in the manager's column, you'll see the $1.125 million in reduction. That's over and above what we originally did to come up with that 33 million starting number. So we've stripped this budget clean. We've got less employees. We've got less programs. We've got less materials. The goal of this, and my goal throughout the whole process when we finally finalize this, is to keep it at a 0 tax increase. I know the citizens are hurting. There's a potential large number of unemployed. The number by town has not been released yet. I'm hoping within the next week or so to have those numbers from Rhode Island DLT, so we'll actually see how many new unemployed we have in Rhode Island. At the end of March, we had a 4.9% unemployment rate in the town. I suspect, and unfortunately, that number is going to rise greatly when the April numbers come out. We're doing everything we can to try to minimize this budget and keep it to a 0 to not put any further burden on the taxpayers of this town. We've taken it out of people. We've taken it out of materials. We've brought it down, and if need be, based on the reduction in tax collection rates, which I fear is going to take place once we get some better numbers, we will continue to remove whatever we can and reduce, and it's more than likely going to mean additional services and programs that will have to be eliminated in the budget to keep that budget line item. Again, this is my presentation to the council. The council will be able to do what you ladies and gentlemen feel is right. I'm putting forward what I feel is right at this point on what we need to do to keep this a realistic budget with numbers that are based on is the most accurate information that I can give you. I've looked at and spoken to a number of mayors and town managers throughout the state. Some are trying to do the same thing. Others are looking at other ways of trying to balance it. I feel this is the best way to be as completely accurate as possible on this. We could go over the department numbers if you'd like, but as you scroll through this and go through this report, I know you've only had it for a couple of hours, you will see these are bare bones budgets for every department that we have. There is no fluff. There is no anything. It's less than, like I said, most of them are less than last year, some to a substantial amount. President McGee, I don't know if you have any questions or any of the council have questions. I can go over the individual departments if you'd like to do that. I didn't bring the department heads in only because of the fact that this is I don't know what they're going to tell you. I mean, if you want that, I will do that. We've got a meeting scheduled for next Thursday, which is a public hearing. I will have them here if you'd like. Also, next Thursday's meeting we were informed today that we should have the Zoom application from the state by tomorrow. If that's the case, then we will be doing the Zoom meeting on the next meeting. Mr. McGee, I turn it over to you at this point, and whoever's got questions.
Mr. President, I have a question. Gary Cody.
Mr. McGee, unmute your phone, please.
That was the problem. I was muted. I'm sorry about that. I will give each council member an opportunity to speak so we can maintain some order. I want to say that thank you, Mr. Manager, for putting this presentation together. Unfortunately, we did only receive it a couple of hours ago. I have a couple of comments, but I'd be honest, I have not had a chance to thoroughly go through, which I probably think most of us have not. But I'm sure there will be questions, and I think it would be a good idea to possibly bring in the department heads either next month. We can discuss that, through this work session, or next meeting to bring them in. But I know there was so many, fluid things. There's so much unanswered questions still, and it's very aggravating considering that we are supposed to have an FTM in about 5 weeks. So I know I've spoken to the town manager daily, and he's worked to try to make this a realistic budget. Sometimes, this is the right thing to do. It's morally the right thing to do. People cannot afford tax increase. And he really reduced this budget to bare bones and then some. If we have to reduce it anymore, it's going to really affect some services bad. We're already cutting recreation just about out. It's unfortunate. Nobody wants to lose any services, but there are a lot of people that are really hurting right now. And we're trying to get every bargaining unit to work with us and help us with realistic, concessions. There's still so much trying to go on, but I appreciate the town manager putting his time. I know you've been on many conference calls throughout the day and trying to get some answers, and it's aggravating that we still don't have answers from the state. But I don't have any individual questions on the budget because, like I said, I have not went through line by line like I would probably do this weekend to go through it. So at this time, I'm going to give every council member, and I will start off with Vice President, excuse me, Vice President LeBassiniere. If you have any questions, please address it to the town manager that we can answer. If not, we'll just continue moving on. So it's all yours, Vice President.
Yeah, I do, but Mr. Cody had had some comments or questions, and I would actually like to acquiesce before I start mine to see what he had to say.
Okay, and I will do that. Mr. Cody, you have a question or whatever? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I'd like to commend the manager and his staff on their ability to put this budget together with so many unknowns that we're still looking at. It's not easy on a regular basis. Operating under this pandemic and the executive orders and the emergency orders that the governor keeps putting into place is not making this process any easier. With that being said, and only because the manager pointed it out during his presentation, we have a lot of people that are unemployed. We don't know what our collection rate is going to be. Mr. Manager, what is the opportunity to give our taxpayers a 30-day extension on the payment of those fourth quarter taxes without any penalties or interest being accrued? As you said yourself, 1 in 5 Rhode Islanders are currently out of work. I don't know how that affects the town of Coventry on an overall number, but I know it does have a great effect on the town of Coventry. I know people are having to stay home and homeschool their children. They don't have daycare. The daycares are shut down. This is affecting everybody, but it's affecting everybody financially. I think we need to step up as a council, as a municipality, as a group, and look out for the taxpayers that we serve and try to do something with those fourth quarter tax payments without our taxpayers having to accrue interest and penalties. Is there anything we can do, Mr. Manager?
We are currently looking at that to see if we can do it. My understanding is, and I know some of the communities are in process of doing it, but state law doesn't normally allow us to waive those interest charges. But under the circumstances, we're looking to see if we can do that, and at the very least, give another 30 days and give it till the middle of June. if we can, and again, without interest on that. So we are working on that to see if we can offer that. If we can, it's going to have to go in front of the council, and you ladies and gentlemen will have to vote on it. But once I have an answer, I will have that on the agenda ASAP so we can do it.
Well, I've done a little homework myself, and you're absolutely right. There are other communities that are absolutely doing it. And I know under normal circumstances that it would call for a meeting of the legislature for legislative approval. That's not happening. The legislature is not meeting. Coventry is a home rule charter, a community. I think because of the emergency that we're under and because of the emergency declaration that our council president has enacted in the town of Coventry, I think we have the authority to do it, but I am not an attorney. Mr. Gorham is. So I will defer to what Mr. Gorham says is the right thing to do and what the manager says is the right thing to do. But I firmly believe we need to step up and do something.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cody. Mr. Gorham or Mr. Manager, do you have any answers to that? Mr. Gorham, I know you probably need some time to research it, but
I do believe that the payments are set at the financial town meeting, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember it might have been at the time, Council Member Jen Zayek used to have a motion to, I just remember Ted Jen Zayek always wanted to waive late fees longer than was permitted by state law and so forth. But that's just an aside. My recollection is that those payment dates are set at the financial town meeting, and I'm not sure that it's required by law, but I will look into that, and then if it is set at the financial town meeting, I'll also determine if the council has the authority to change that.
Mr. Gorham, it is in the warrant on the at the FTM. Those dates are voted on.
Right. So I don't know if that enables the council to change it. That was a vote of the appropriating authority, the people, in Coventry. But let me look into it.
yeah, I would appreciate that, because especially considering we're under emergency declaration, if that makes a difference. But if you could look into that, that's a viable question. I appreciate that. Mr. Cody, do you have any other questions?
No, that'll do it. As you stated, I've only had this package a couple of hours. I haven't had a chance to go over it in detail. I'm sure I'll have more questions at next week's meeting.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to go back to the Vice President, if you're ready to make any comments, any questions.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. Again, I'll always like to reiterate what Councilman Cody had said regarding the work of the town manager and the department heads and the folks working for the town. Certainly not easy coming up with best guess models, which even in good times, our budget is a best guess model without having to have all of these question marks up and down a budget. But a couple of things that I've got. For instance, I mean, a lot of it is going to this budget is going to depend on the collection rate, and as you said, 1% differential on the collection rate is what, about $700,000? Is that what you said, Ed?
Yes, sir. About $700,000 approximately.
Okay, in that. So my question is, and again, you may not have the answer tonight. I know it's difficult, but for instance, and this time is unprecedented, but we had a recession and some other emergencies which happened, for instance, even after 2008, 2009 into there. What I would love to be able to do is to see exactly what the collection rates were during some of those difficult times, to see if we could almost, take a somewhat of a guess at where a realistic collection rate might end up. Not knowing, again, I know we have an average in regular times, but 09 and 2010 and going into those areas were not regular times either. So I'd like to see what type of fluctuation happened at that point in time as well. Secondly, on the debt service, again, just looking for a possibility. Is it possible to speak with our bond counsel to find out if bond payments could be interest only for this year to help us out? You know, again, I'm just strictly questions to see if there are any feasibilities. I'm sure other people have probably asked for the same type of thing. You know, because I'm looking in those areas because we'd still be keeping up with our, with obligations, extending them a little bit without really having detrimental effects to our services. And likewise with the actuarial numbers for the pension obligations, whether, but although my fear is that with the stock market being down, et cetera, those actuarial numbers will probably end up jumping up big time. With the market being down, obviously you have to contribute more when those revenue places are down. But those are my only thoughts right now. Other than one other question would be, have you thought about the incremental changes, the priorities that would have to go away, or the bottom of the priority list items, should that collection rate go down an additional 1%, 2%, which could mean, $700,000, $1.4 million less in revenue that we'd be receiving. Just a thought as to where additional cuts might end up having to be made.
We have done that. We have a hierarchy of where those cuts will come from, if and when, or when and if we have to do those. As far as your other question in reference to the 2008 timeframe when the market and the country basically tanked, we had at that point a high unemployment rate. It fluctuated around 12.2%, and floated typically in the 10 to 12% range for several years. During those years, we did go back and look at those collection rates to try to get a historical on it. And they were in the ballpark of around 97, 98. It varied. It was varying back then even. So there was a drop, not as good as it is now, but there was a drop of potentially a point to 2 points on those. And again, that was with an unemployment rate projected at the time of about 12%, 11%. I went and pulled up all of the unemployment rate numbers going back to 1990. And we've gone back and looked at all of those to try to give us a perspective on where we're going and how we can get there.
Okay. With the currently projected municipal budget post at the 32, what is it, 32,226?
30, yes, 32.
What collection rate are you at to come up with that number right now?
Right now, that is still at the 95 and change because we don't have anything realistic to use at this point. That's why we're waiting for the first couple of weeks or the last couple of weeks of collection in this fourth quarter to be able to give us a decent number. I don't want to put something out there that I don't feel we can meet, and I don't want to give false hope.
Okay.
So that's why we haven't changed that at this point. We're waiting for further data.
No, so it's at 95% collection rate?
99% collection rate.
It's at 99.5. So, all right. So, in other words, the only place that this budget can go down is down. There's no, in other words, with it set like this. Depending, obviously, the revenue things could certainly change, but that that collection, they're obviously. Yep.
One of the upsides, what we need, and again, we're waiting from basically the Fed level at this point on whether or not they have that stimulus package 4, which would and should allegedly include money for the states as well as municipalities that would allow to make up for lost revenue. That's the only other thing that would possibly allow us to put anything back into this budget. At this point, I project nothing but decreases from where we are now. With the number you're seeing, the 33.2 is going to be, I mean, the 33.2 is the highest you're going to see this thing. It's only going to go down.
Yeah, the 32.
Yep.
Yeah.
The budget's
Yeah,
only
so in
going to
other
go down.
words, that's why. If it ends up going to, 98%, it's a point and a half. So we're talking $1 million cut. Just if the depends. That's just on the collection rate.
Correct.
Which is why I'm trying to think. All right, well, are there other things? And what are your thoughts on the debt service? Requesting maybe interest only or something.
Well, we'll look into the interest only. We've looked at doing a refi on the bonds themselves, and obviously because of the way the market is, their actually rates are higher than what we would have under that we've got currently. So that isn't in.
Okay.
My concern, I would also have to check into what would the effect on the state look at in our rating if we pay interest only. That could have a detrimental effect.
Okay.
And start kicking in some of the municipal finance clauses. So that's one of the reasons that.
Well, let me ask this: even if we're asking for it, what would be the positive effect of not paying? In other words, if it was interest only, what would we be saving less in principal on any of those? I guess that would be the question.
I don't have those exact numbers in front of me, but
yeah.
Give me 2 seconds. I believe I broke it down to the debt service. Let me take one quick look at that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Because like you said, I think that maybe I should have asked that question first, as opposed to asking for interest only. I mean, if it's if it's not such a huge deal on the bottom line of the budget, then with the additional principal that's being paid. But if that is something that could have a substantial effect.
Well, it is, Mr. Labassa. Now, I'll bet you if it's just interest only, it's a savings of probably a couple of $1 million.
It will more than likely be in our ballpark range, correct?
Okay, yeah. So in other words, if we could get that again, now it's possible that we might not only be able to, at least consideration for the year, that if it would certainly help to not just even raise taxes, but maybe even to help decrease some taxes for the year to help people out as well too. I don't want to upset the bond rating or anything else, but again, I think it's worthy of a question and asking anyway.
Principal on ours would be almost $1.7 million in savings if we could do interest only.
Yeah, so
I don't know how quickly that could be done because it would obviously have to but we will definitely look into that, and if you like us to, and we'll see what we can do on that as an option.
Again, just trying to pick up stones and look underneath. See
That's what we've been doing the same, so we'll take any suggestions.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you. That's all I've got for right now.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Labassa. It actually is a good idea. I mean, a lot of financial institutions are giving breaks to the consumer and taxpayers. Maybe they would consider that, but that's certainly something to look into. It's a good idea. At this point, if that's all you have, we're going to move on to Councilwoman Dixon. If you have any questions, the floor is all yours, please.
Thank you, Mr. President and Mr. Manager. And Greg, it was an interesting idea that you present. I'd be very concerned because sometimes we have not paid the full amount, for example, the ARC on the pensions, and we got into a lot of trouble down the line. So we would need to do very careful financial considerations, calculations in order to determine if we really ultimately will save money by only paying or not paying the interest or not paying the principal, et cetera. But my questions have to do on the impact of the budget decisions on the functioning and services of the departments. And I've copied down quite a number of departments that are going to have a loss based on what they have requested. And I'd like to start with recreation because they're going to lose almost $400,000, which is a significant amount. And I understand that most of that is coming from temporary employees who I'm assuming might be hired in the summertime. But I would like to have, this is just my first question, recreation. I'd like to have an idea of what's going to be left of the recreation department. Because with such a big cut, what will it look like going through this next year?
It's going to, if you approve it and the numbers stay the way they are, there will be 2 less people in the office as we begin the year. The summer programs, those temporary employees are all part of the summer program. If we can't run the summer
Right.
program, we don't need the bodies. So that's why the savings on that. I've spoken to Ms. Blumenthal in reference to this. She's looking at if we can only run limited programs. She's willing to do as much as we can to run programs with 10 people, 15 people, whatever the limit will be at the time on the social gathering. So she's looking at options for that. I mean, it's not going to be what we've put on in years past. We can't do it, Mrs. Dixon. I mean, I've got 2 things. We can either raise taxes or cut the expenses right now. And
No, I completely understand, and I'm just trying.
but it's going to be a smaller recreation department. There's no getting around it. My original thought was to take it out completely, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to eliminate it because then to try to bring it back would be that much more difficult. At least this way, it's still a recreation department, and we can add to it if and when the finances become available. This whole budget is about wants and needs, and it's a great program that we have, but it's also one of the most expensive in the state.
Thank you. I'm just trying to get clarification on what the impact of these decisions are and what it means. So you clarified that. Now I noticed that there's $100,000 less for data processing. Tell me about that.
No, that's actually just been split up a little bit more in the IT budget. If you look at that, the numbers have just been to move them around more accurately to where the money's coming in. In years past, it's all been sitting in one pool under 22.9, I think it was. So we've actually gone and broken that up a bit to break it up into different buckets. But it hasn't been reduced by the 100. It's just been moved.
Just been moved. Okay. The next question has to do with DPW. Now, I noticed that there are reductions in engineering, roads and bridges, building maintenance, and vehicle maintenance, with the biggest in roads and bridges. So tell me what the impact of those cuts mean.
The impact means it's less services, less equipment, less pots. It's getting by on less money. And Mr. McGee is one of the best at getting by on less money. He's done a phenomenal job. 2 years ago, he had $500,000 left in his budget at the end of the year that he didn't use. He's always been able to make do with what he's got. And we've discussed this. And I mean, it's going to mean some decreases, but we don't have a lot of options.
Does this mean less people or just less collections of garbage? What does
No. There'll be no less collections of garbage. There'll be no. There is. It's not a reduction, but it's not replacing a person that's been gone for a year. So there's no real effect on the body count. There'll be less. I mean, the numbers are the numbers, and I mean, it might take an extra day to do yard waste or things like that. There'll be some reductions in the time it takes to get something done, but there's not much else we can do.
Okay, now I noticed that in the general fund, there's a reduction of $99,000 in the contingency fund. Tell me about that.
That was money that was added into last year's budget for a specific purpose, and it's not needed this year, so it's out of there.
Okay, thank you. Now I noticed that there are some smaller cuts in, land trust and planning. Could you talk to those? It's 944 and 940.
How much are we talking on those, Mrs. Dixon?
Planning is 6496, 6,496. Land trust is 31. I'm just trying to determine where we're taking all this money and what it means.
That came directly from Mr. Crossman, and based on what they've used in the past in those smaller groups, and that's why those numbers were reduced.
Okay. Now, town solicitor, category 410, $20,000. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Just simply looking at what we spent in the past years, I've reduced that down to more in line with what we spent. I mean, there has been a year where we did spend more. There were a lot of litigations going on. But this year, looking at where we're going, I've dropped it down. I've brought those numbers down a bit. Again, trying to cut wherever we can cut.
Now, I'm assuming that the cut in the tax assessor's office of $217,934 has to do with the fact that we're not going to do a reevaluation this year. Is that correct?
Yes, there was a reval that we had been paying on, and that's not happening anymore. I mean, the reval's done. So yes, that's why that reduction.
Okay. Well, thank you for that clarification. So my next question really follows up with Greg. What's Plan B? I mean, this is Plan A, and I can see that you've been very creative, and the department heads have really worked with you and said they will work with you to make this a balanced budget. We don't know what the revenue will be. But what's Plan B? Because we're assuming a 99-something% collection rate, and none of us really believe it's going to quite be 99%. So what are your ideas for going forward next?
Well, Plan B is there are some other areas where, again, we can make some additional cuts. It's going to require, reducing more services, doing some control there. And Plan C, obviously, is what some other communities are looking at, the possibility of, and I even hate to put this out there, but utilize the fund balance in a very limited way, if need be, to fill any short gaps in this. Remember, anything of a reduction on the collection rate means we collect it the following year during the tax sale. So that money will be coming in. It just won't be coming in next fiscal year. It'll be there the following year and collected. So it wouldn't be official. Technically, it's deficit spending, but the money will be coming back in the following fiscal year. So that's the ultimate if we get to that point. I mean, I'm hoping we're going to get some stimulus funds. Again, I can't base the budget on that. I base it on what we've got, and that's why we're looking at, the absolute worst case scenario is going that route. And again, that'll be up to the council to make that decision. I will only be able to give you my recommendation, and you ladies and gentlemen will have that tough decision on what to do on that.
Okay, and my last question has to do with the capital improvement program. Are we still going to go forward with that this coming year?
That money is still in there, and again, that's part of the hierarchy of what's needed. That will be one of the first to be cut if we have to make additional cuts.
So, in other words, Plan B might be to cut the capital improvement program?
As part of additional cuts that take place if we have to go to additional cuts, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Councilman Dixon. I just want to add that we are also looking at the school side, which is besides municipal. So there are also going to be cuts coming from that side also. So with that being said, I would like to give Councilwoman Bacon an opportunity to ask questions. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Kerry. A lot of my questions have been answered and brought up a lot of the questions that I also had. Ed, I do have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
I brought this up a couple of months ago when we did receive our budget back on, I believe it was February 19th. I asked, when will the town council be receiving the Planning Commission annual report, the impact fee report, and also the message from the town manager that usually goes on the front page of the budget book? I was wondering when we'll be receiving these documents.
Mrs. Bacon, I will get you those as soon as I can. I'm not making excuses. I mean, we are working shorthanded, and we are, the mess we're in. But I will definitely get you those documents as soon as feasibly possible. I apologize.
Yeah, no, because I just wanted to make sure because
Nope, they're on my operating. Nope, they're on my list, ma'am. I just.
Yep. No, I just wanted a friendly reminder.
Nope,
that's all.
I appreciate that. Thank
you. For charter and for ordinance.
Yep.
That's all. Thank you.
No, thank you.
And I was wondering, we get every year. We also get a personnel supplement in our budget book. Will we be receiving one of those this year also?
Yes, you will. We are updating all of those. Again, as I said earlier, I may be shorthanded for 14 days. Just what I need at this point.
Yes.
But yes, that's in the
Understood.
system.
Roger that.
We built that whole system last year, and it just needs to be updated once we finalize some of these other pieces, but we will give you all of those as well.
Okay, I do have one quick question. When I was quickly going through the book, I know because we did receive it late this afternoon, I did notice in the police department that the K-9 unit is now, hang on, let me go flip to that. It now says 0.
Yes, ma'am. The K-9 the police department had retired, and yes. So the K-9 is living off at a house, and his days of being an officer are done. And there was a line item in their want or their budget, and up until COVID-19, it was still in there, and it amounts to about $27,000. A good portion of that is overtime for the officer. And under the circumstances, if it was remove an officer or remove a dog, I chose to get rid of the dog. And so we're gonna hold off on the new K-9 until the next budget season.
Okay.
I spoke to the. By the way, any of these cuts, we've spoken to the people, the department heads involved. They were involved. At one point, we even looked at elimination of the SWAT team, which I didn't feel was a very smart move under the circumstances. So the SWAT team is still in there, but the K-9 did get removed as part of the reduction in their budget.
Okay. Also, would the council be able to get a report on the COVID-19 expenses that the town has incurred so far?
Yes, we have to track all of those for reimbursement, and Mr. Arnett has been doing that, and I will get that for you. I'm laughing only
and
because
that reimbursement, is that at 75%?
Yes, it
Fed
is.
And,
yeah.
Okay.
There are some
Okay,
some other expenditures that they may or may not get reimbursed on. We're still again we're waiting to hear on some of those, but we've been tracking everything involved on this. Like I said, John's been doing it, so I'll see what he's up to, how he's feeling, and getting that to you ASAP.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. Now, with the COVID-19, the emergency that we've had, it's very limited access to town hall, limited access to our planning department over at the annex in the building department. Are we able to utilize some of that COVID-19 money, that reimbursement? Would we be able to get some programs so we can have our permits all online? So this way, if folks want to go and get their building permits, get their permit for their yard sale. Well, I don't know if we can have yard sales now, but
we are
dog licenses.
We are in process of doing the building permits as we speak. We recently, this week, put on all of the land evidence records are now online and available. You were going to get that in your weekly report tomorrow, so you get it today. So those are all online, effective this week, which is reduced traffic in town hall already. It's in just the last couple of days by having that on here. Permits are in play. We started the process actually right before this started to get us online, so we're working on that.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know if we were able to submit any of this to make our town hall and the annex over there.
But as far as getting reimbursed on that,
COVID-19.
No, we're not going to get money on that from what we're being told.
Okay.
Technology is not.
So it was fingers crossed.
Yeah, I know. There are a lot of communities that have actually had to buy a lot of hardware, a lot of laptops to go for remote work, and we've been advised that none of that is going to be reimbursable. So, yeah, there's not. I'm fearful there's not going to be a lot flowing down to the municipal level when this is all said and done.
So how does it work? Does it come through the state, and then the state gives it to the municipalities?
Correct. REMA is actually the one that we send in our monthly COVID-19 report to. They get all of those numbers, they compile them, and then they send it up, and then we will get reimbursed through them when they get reimbursed, depending on what's accepted, what's denied. But yeah, it's all going through REMA on that. So we have a monthly report.
Okay, which is the Rhode Island Emergency Management Agency, for
yes,
folks
ma'am.
that may not know. Okay, so it goes through them, so hopefully we would be reimbursed.
Yes. We're hoping. We are putting every dime we can onto it in the hope of getting back as much of it as we can. So we're putting anything and everything in there that we can.
Okay. All right. And then just picking up with Parks and Rec, I know Ann Dixon was asking questions about it also. So I guess, if all of a sudden we can have events, say, at Christmas, that there would be money in there for that?
Yes, those events don't require a lot of funds. They're still in there. There's still money in it. What I had Raina do was strip out all the costs associated with programs, summer camp, and all of that. Everything up to September 1st. So July, August, and then from September on, the money for those programs is still in the budget. But everything prior to that is what we've eliminated. Again, because it's not going to be we're not going to be able to do it. So there's no sense keeping that money in there. Like I said, we're doing everything we can to be able to maintain that department. I think we're gonna need them once we can start getting in, and hopefully we'll be able to do some small programs during the summer with limited number of children. I mean, but the band concerts are all off, the summer camp's off. More than likely, all of the athletic fields are going to remain closed for the whole season. I mean, there's just it doesn't look good for a lot of that being able to be held. But there is money available for the remainder of the year. That's why, to eliminate it completely, we would have saved an additional $200,000 and change. And I thought for the $200,000, again, at this point, it's still in there to be able to have something and to be able to, if need be, when things get better, we can reconstitute the bigger programs that we want to and need to.
And it is well utilized, and I can tell you I would have fought tooth and nail to keep Parks and Rec, so you already know that. I'm glad you did not eliminate that.
You know my feelings on what I wanted to do, and I thought long and hard, and we discussed, and I couldn't, in all good conscience, bring myself to eliminate it completely. There's too many people. I've been to too many events that the people of this town really enjoy. They love. I love them. And to eliminate all that, in the name of this would have been like, it would have taken away the best part of the best of what we have in this town. So that's why we've done what we've done. I'm trying to maintain it, and we'll see how things go as we move forward in this.
Okay. And Briar Point Beach, would that be open this summer?
We are waiting for guidance from the town, from the state on that as well. So
okay.
A lot of this is. A lot of what we don't know is we're waiting from them.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Baker. Yeah, it's unfortunate that unusual times we have to make unusual decisions, and I certainly am going to miss a lot of the Parks and Rec, and the taxpayers really utilize and like that service. But we've got to do what we've got to do, unfortunately. So, with that being said, if I think we're going to have some questions. Now, next week's meeting is scheduled for a public hearing. I don't know whether that would be a good time, and I'll have discussions with the town manager throughout the week. I know we want to go department by department, but I don't think next week at the public hearing would be the time to do that. So I'll have discussion.
Would Tuesday or Wednesday work for the council, and I will set up and schedule a work session so we can have all the department heads online as well prior to the public hearing. I think it would make more sense to give the council a chance to go through some of these questions, and I'll bring all the department heads in for either Tuesday or Wednesday.
That would make sense for me. Actually, none of us really are going anywhere, except at night. So I'm fine with either one of those nights. That makes sense to have go department by department with the department head. We may end up, if there's a lot of questions. I mean, we're looking for a zero increase, so I can't imagine there being as many questions as in the past, because we're doing what's right, so what needs to be done, should I say. However, would you think one night would be able to accomplish what we want to accomplish, Mr. Manager?
I think it is. I agree with you, sir. I don't know how many questions everybody's going to have, but I mean, if we started at 5 o'clock, even if it takes 3 hours, I mean, we'll still be out of here by 8. Everybody will be at home except for the clerk and I will be here. But I mean,
Excuse me, Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir.
Gary Code. Just for the record, and you may not believe this, but I guess paving roads has been deemed essential personnel. So some of us are still going to work every day. And 5 o'clock, believe it or not, is not always convenient for those that are having to leave their house to go to work every day. I've been doing my best to make the meetings, but I've done 2 of them while sitting in the front seat of a truck at work, because I'm still at work at 5 o'clock on a lot of afternoons.
What I will do is I'll send an email out to everybody tomorrow requesting availability for Tuesday, Wednesday times, and then I'll go forward and I'll notify everyone and see if it's agreeable, and then we'll set this up for what works for everyone.
Well, I can tell you that just for me personally, 6 o'clock is much better. I don't expect to go after 6 o'clock, but 6 o'clock would be much better for me personally.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, this is Ann Dixon speaking. Tuesday or Wednesday are fine with me. I really don't anticipate having any more questions for the department heads, but if you do have them at a meeting, I'm happy to participate. So either night is fine with me at any time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dixon. Is there anybody, here again, the town manager will send out notices and we'll set up whatever day works the best for us. And like I said, most of us are pretty well stuck at home now anyway, so with the exception of people who work during the day, including myself. But the times and everything are to be determined, and that makes sense to have this little meeting prior to our public hearing on next Thursday. So I guess with that being said, if there are no other questions on the work session, we can move on to item C1. Madam Clerk, would you please read C1, please?
Resolution to continue and renew the emergency declaration executed by Council President McGee on March 16th, 2020.
Mr. Manager, do you have any comments on that? I know it's just a renew, and it could be ended at any time. I would love to see it be able to end quickly, but you want to make any comments on this?
Correct. It can be. I mean, this expires effective today, I believe. So yeah, we need to renew this under the circumstances. It's just a formality. I mean, it's the same that you've done the past.
I will entertain any questions from Mr. Labassane. Do you have any questions or comments?
Just that we're extending it from what I see to June 1st, it looks like.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, no, I've got no problem.
Okay, good. We're moving into Mrs. Dixon. Do you have any comments?
I do not have any comments.
Okay, Mr. Brady, do you have any comments? Thank you.
No comment.
And Ms. Baker, do you have any comments?
No, I do not.
Okay, so I guess the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Greg LeBlanc here, motion to approve.
We have a motion
Gary.
to approve. We have a second.
Gary Cody, second.
We have a second. All in favor, Madam Clerk, would you do a roll call vote?
Kerry McGee,
Yes.
Greg LeBlanc,
Yes.
Gary Cody,
Yes.
Ann Dixon,
Yes, Dixon.
Deborah Bacon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, as we have all approved it, the motion carries. The next item on the agenda, Madam Clerk, would be item C2. Would you read it for me, please?
Resolution requesting Governor Raimondo to convene a special session of the General Assembly pursuant to Article 9, Section 7 of the Rhode Island Constitution.
Mr. Manager or Solicitor, would you like to go over that? We've all had the opportunity. We received a copy of it in our packet, and would you like to go over it in a nutshell and explain it so that we can understand what it's about?
This actually came into my office from
Representative Chippendale.
Yeah, Chippendale, Gordon did it, a couple of them. The purpose of this is to bring the legislators back in and get them involved, because there are things that we're looking for, the relief that we need, the cities and towns need, that we don't feel and the lawyers don't feel that they're covered by an executive order alone. They need to have legislative approval. And so this is a boilerplate that's going out to pretty much all the communities And it's one of those ceremonial, just requesting that they bring them back in. So we've been getting the process of hopefully giving us some resolution and some answers to some of the problems or relief from some of the issues we're facing. Mr. Gorham, did I cover that?
Yeah, the resolution's a little redundant because the General Assembly is already in session. And Article 9, Section 7 gives the governor the authority to convene the General Assembly whenever there is the prevalence of an epidemic. So even though it's redundant, I think it makes the point pretty well that town councils around the state, as I understand it, want the General Assembly to convene, even though they're in session, and try to get things cleared up so that we can have financial meetings and so forth.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Solicitor. I'm going to give each council person again to ask any questions, and I'll start out by asking Mr. LeBassonere, do you have any questions or comments concerning that item?
No, I understand it. Again, it's regarding our financial town meeting and the numerous other things, and the requesting, even in the midst of a regular session, that they may need to have a special session, and it just, I think, put a little pressure for them to actually address those issues.
Okay, great, thank you. We'll move on to Councilwoman Dixon. Do you have any comments or questions on this resolution?
I'm in favor of the resolution. However, what I don't understand is who will make the decision? Is it the governor who can make the decision, or is it the assembly that has to make the decision concerning when we have elections, whether town financial meetings continue in their present form, etc.? So in whose hands is this decision?
Do you want me to answer that, Mr. President?
Yes, sir, please.
I believe the General Assembly could definitely do that. To straighten, give some direction on financial meetings around the state that are currently being contemplated by the several cities and towns. I've heard people say that the governor could do it, but there's nothing better than the General Assembly and the governor doing it together. And I'm not sure that the governor can change the law on financial town meetings. I think it's better if the General Assembly does it.
So, I mean, my question is, there are certain dates which are in our charter that we have to abide by. And I'm concerned about the timing of this resolution and the timing of the action that the Assembly would take so that we could act in an appropriate way.
Well, I think everything is suspended right now. If I'm not mistaken, that was in the governor's first executive order, if I'm not mistaken. Nonetheless, it's time for the General Assembly to act. If we want to get things done within the parameters that we have under our charter and under state law, we need more information really in the next couple weeks, or we are going to run into some conflicts. No question about it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Dixon. Mr. Cody, do you have any questions or concerns concerning this resolution?
Well, I do. First of all, for the solicitor, does the General Assembly have the right to overturn an executive order that's been signed by the governor? Because the governor has certainly issued an executive order at the present time that says no more than 6 people in a crowd together. And secondly, will the General Assembly come back in before the Department of Health deems it safe for them to be in close proximity to each other in the chamber?
That is an excellent question. I don't think anybody ever thought of that when they were writing the Constitution, about, the issue of people needing to assemble in order to have an orderly financial town meeting. Great question. I can tell you this, that the General Assembly, according to the Constitution, has all the power of how towns may levy and collect taxes. That's right in the Constitution.
I agree.
For cities and towns. So, can the governor suspend people getting together? Yes. But eventually those two are going to collide, and there's going to be some friction. Cities and towns have to be able to raise money to pay their bills. And if there is not some action in a coordinate effort between the governor and the General Assembly, I think we're headed for some really, really uncharted territory. I don't want to make any predictions. I just think it's going to be very difficult to figure out what to do without some direction.
Well, I'm not sure we're headed for uncharted territory, because the town of Coventry in the past has been in a position to have to operate off of last year's budget and last year's tax collection and rate,
Right.
until a new budget was passed.
That's
So I'm
right.
not sure we're in uncharted territory, but I'm sure that if the two don't get together, the legislature and the governor, and come to some kind of resolution, that eventually the town of Coventry is going to end up with a financial disaster, but that we may not be able to recover from.
Right. Well, you're right, Member Cody. The town has operated on the previous year's budget before. I think it was back around 2005 or so. I think, not positive. What I'm saying, though, is that I don't remember a year where we didn't have a financial town meeting because we couldn't. I don't remember that. Could be wrong, but I don't think it's ever happened. The General Assembly, like I said, has complete power over how cities and towns levy, assess, and collect taxes. They can do it themselves if they want to. So I just think all this resolution does is implore the General Assembly to get into session and try to help solve some of the problems. I think that's really all it says.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solicitor. And last but not least, Councilwoman Bacon, do you have any questions or concerns concerning this resolution?
Yes, I do. So I was a little surprised when we saw this. So I just want to walk this back a little bit. So this came before us because Rep. Chippendale and Senator Rogers approached you, Ed. Is this how this came about?
It came in via an email, yes. It went out to the other communities as well.
Okay.
I can also tell you, Member Bacon, according to Senator Rogers, because I called him after we got this, he said the town of Foster did approve this resolution.
I will.
And that was approved on April 23rd, 20, during their Zoom meeting?
I don't know when. I didn't ask when. He just said that Foster had approved it. He told me that.
Okay, yeah, because I found it a little, interesting because it's, very vague on what we actually want the General Assembly to do and the governor. They just hold a special session immediately. And just hearing everyone speak tonight, apparently it's regarding, regarding our FTM, our all-day referendum, and possibly elections. So if it's, I just want to know, out of all the, the other communities that also have FTMs and all-day referendums, such as Barrington, they just held a meeting. They did not discuss it. It was not on their agenda. East Greenwich just held a meeting this week. It was not on their agenda. Exeter also held a meeting a couple weeks ago, was not on any agenda. Forster, yes, and now you're just telling me that they did approve this resolution on 4/23/20. Gloucester, they just had a meeting. This was not on their agenda. Jamestown, they also had a meeting this week, just the other day. That was not on their agenda. Same thing with Lincoln. Same thing with Little Compton. Same thing with New Shoreham. Same thing with Richmond. And the same, Situate is having a meeting at the same time we are right now, and it's not on their agenda. Neither is Smithfield, Warren, or West Greenwich. So I just want to go, I just want to get the list of all, so everyone knows, and West Warwick. So these are all the communities that I guess would be seeking this, but none of them have put it on an agenda, just Foster and the town of Coventry. So what are you specifically looking for? You're asking for guidance. What guidance are you looking for? I just need to be I need to understand.
Mrs. Bacon, if I may, one of the things that's come up in our daily calls with the league is the communities that have the all-day ref and the FTMs. We all have the ability to continue on with the same spending level going into the next year. The questions come up, and it appears as though it's not covered. There's no coverage for continuing the levy, the authorized levy that actually allows us to collect the taxes. Part of this is getting them back in is for them to authorize a 3-month extension. So we could put out the same a quarterly tax bill while we're working to resolve the other issues, and then come back with a three-quarter tax bill after that, after the 3 months is up. But right now, the way it looks is it doesn't appear as though that the emergency declaration would allow that to take place. At least that's the contention of the vast majority of the people on the 17 that are affected by this. Why they're not on there, I don't know. I put it up based on the problems that we're having. I agree that I think they need to come in. I think there are a lot of things that the emergency declaration will not cover. And I think they need to be involved so we can get to where we need to be able to, even if it's for nothing else, to give us a 90-day breather so we can put out a 1-quarter budget or a 1-quarter bill and at least have revenue coming in, because that's one of the main concerns. It doesn't appear as though we've got cover to actually reissue another bill by extending the current levy into the next fiscal year.
Okay, so I guess...
Member Bacon, just to clarify, this resolution was not solicited by the town manager or me. It was, I guess, offered by Representative Chippendale. I called him, and I never got a call back about it. I called Senator Rogers because at the time I wasn't sure who submitted it, and I did talk to him about it. He knew about it. He told me it was prepared by Representative Chippendale and circulated by him, and like I said, that Foster passed it. That's really all I know about it.
It's simply...
I didn't feel it was not to put it in front of the council since it was submitted by, one of your state representatives.
It's simply a request to bring them back into session. That's what it's about, asking them to bring them back in. It's not about...
So I guess
Good.
My question is, so you're looking, what I'm hearing is, so would we have our public hearing? Are we asking that we not have the all-day referendum with the voters?
No.
Is this resolution?
This resolution doesn't do that.
Because I'm trying to understand, if we have our public hearing, which we're planning on next week, and then we have our FTM, and a few days later we have our all-day referendum, and the voters vote. Are we not looking at having those? Because I'm a little confused.
We are not going to have final numbers from the state probably until right up before July 1st. We do not know, and that's the biggest fear out of all of the communities in these meetings, that we're not going to know numbers. So we're forced to put a budget together, and we're forced to make assumptions that may not be valid. If we have the ability to do a 1-quarter tax bill out there at the same current rates of tax rate as well as levy rate, it allows us the time we need to be able to get the data, formulate, and then continue on with the process, if need be, including the financial town meeting. It's not about circumventing the town meeting. That is one option that has been looked at. There are a number of options and a number of different things, but the 3-month period is critical to allow us to be able to get the right information that we have. I mean, that's why we don't have the info. We don't know what's going on with the state. We need that time. I mean, under the best of years, having us do budgets based on what we think the state's going to do is tough enough. But now having to do this based on what we think they're going to do when they're $500 million in the red just makes it absolutely an unknown. And it's scary to me to be able to put this through, run through the whole process, and get to the point and then find out we've got to do a supplemental. We've lost even more money than we're thinking, and not have the right numbers that we need and the right data that we need. So it's not about, again, it's simply a request to bring them back in to, and that's one of the things that we're the 17 are looking for. Give us the ability to have a 90 days, so we can do an extension and then put out and do the FTM and do what we need to do. But at least we have more accurate numbers then, much more than what we've got now in this whole process that we're trying to do.
Mr. President, may I make a comment, please?
Yes, Mrs. Dixon, please do.
Thank you. This is a response to Mrs. Bacon's question. When I read the resolution, what I looked for after I got through all the rhetoric was really the last paragraph on page 12 of 13. All it's really saying is that we're encouraging the Assembly to meet in order to perform its constitutional functions.
Yes.
That's all it asks them to do, meet to perform your constitutional functions. It is not asking them to do anything specifically, such as move the voting authority over to the town council, eliminate TFMs, etc. All it says, meet, continue to do the work that you're supposed to be doing. At that time, if they are meeting, then sure, there might be certain interest groups that are going to try to get bills before the Assembly to get them passed, and we don't know what they are, what will be their nature, or what they're going to actually want to tackle. But all this resolution says is, please meet to perform your constitutional functions. That's the only thing it says is the reason they want them to meet.
Thank you, Ms. Dixon. And I will just say that I think a lot of this reason for this is because we're not trying to circumvent anything. We would love to have the finance town meeting go and everything just like normal. But as it stands right now, we're not able to have that meeting with the limitations that we have. So we want some guidance, and we're a little discouraged because we have not gotten much information back from the governor's office or legislation. So it's just a push to hopefully get them moving and perform their constitutional rights. So, Ms. Bacon, do you have any more questions concerning this?
Oh, thank you, Terry. No, I was just concerned because when I read this, and yes, it does say to convene a special meeting, but then, hearing folks speaking on this, people were mentioning regarding our FTM, regarding the elections. So I just wanted to make sure that this was not anything that we were going to be requesting circumventing the voters. I know we have our all-day referendum coming up, and, that's going to be on June 11th. And I just wanted to make sure that we will have that day that the people will be able to go vote. I mean, we can all go stand in line at BJ's and Walmart to enter the stores and do our food shopping. We can all probably stand in line and go vote. So I just want to make sure that we're not circumventing that and that we will be able to have the voters vote. That's all. I just wanted reassurance.
I would not want to circumvent the FTM. I think if people have the right to vote, and I hope it does, the only thing that would be in question is possibly the date. We might not be able to keep the dates, just depending on whatever the governor, limitations we have. But I certainly would, no decisions are made yet, and to make a particular decision, it's just saying get moving so we can move along with this. So, are there any other?
Yeah, no, thank you, Terry, because that was the first I was, hearing about that, possibly needing that extra time. So no, thank you. It answered a lot of questions. Thank you. I appreciate it.
I think that just came down today, actually, on the fact, talking to the town manager as far as the possibility of extra time. So this is just really pushing them to get moving and give us some answers, because we're getting to critical time. We're in a prime budget season here, and we have too many unknowns. So we really want to get moving. And I want to have our meetings. I want to have all day marathon. I think we all do. But we also got to consider, be safe. So that's our main, if there are any other questions concerning this resolution, if not, the chair will entertain a motion.
Kerry, I'm sorry, can I just say one more thing? What we just discussed tonight, this way there aren't any rumors out there. Could we just put something out on possibly maybe the town's homepage on what we're seeking? That we're not trying to, the town council is not trying to circumvent any type of taking the vote away from the voters. Could we put something on there just so folks understand what this is all about?
Absolutely, we could do that. I think we can have the manager address that tomorrow on the website.
I will place that on the website. In fact, I will place the whole resolution on the website as well. And they've had it because it was part of the packet, so it's on there, but I will post it on the homepage and an explanation about what it's about. Is simply to get the legislators back into session. That's all it's meant to do.
Well, and one of the things the town of Coventry is looking for is that extended time, because that could possibly be very key.
Yeah, but that's not what the resolution calls for. I mean, this is simply to get them in, but that's one of the reasons we need them in. But if you'd like, I'll put something on that as well. But that's not what this resolution does in any way, shape, or form.
No, I understand that. I think it's just making, because when I read it and then when we heard the conversation, it got a little confusing. So I understand. I just wanted to, let's squash any rumors before they start. That's all. A little knowledge goes a long way. That's all.
Mr. President?
Please know that we are not trying to circumvent anything. We want to abide by the law, but we want to process to go forward, and we want to get them moving. So I appreciate it, Mr. Manager, if you would address that in the morning on the website.
I will take care of that, sir.
Okay, if there are no other questions, the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the resolution. This is Ann Dixon.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Greg LeBoissonier seconds.
We have a second. All in favor? Roll call vote by the clerk, please.
Kerry McGee,
Yes.
Greg LeBoissonier,
Yes.
Gary Cody,
Yes.
Ann Dixon,
Yes.
Deborah Bacon.
Yes.
Okay, yes, have it. Motion carries. With that being said, a motion to adjourn. Can I just add that there is no public comment? Next meeting, we will have it set up for public comment. We'll have our public hearing. So, if there's, that being said, motion to adjourn is in order.
Mr. President, just before the motion to adjourn, I'd just like to add that, again, even if public comment is not available at any of these meetings, our individual council people's information is readily available on the website and other places that if taxpayers of the town need to speak with any of us, that we are open to their phone calls and emails at any time. I would think I am, and I'm sure my colleagues are as well. So thank you. That's all I've got.
Absolutely. Thank you for making that point. So, with that being said, motion to adjourn is in order.
And Greg LeBoissonier will make that motion.
Okay, Greg LeBoissonier has a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Ann Dixon, second.
We have a second. All in favor, Madam Clerk, will you take a roll call vote, please?
Kerry McGee,
Yes.
Greg LeBoissonier,
Yes.
Gary Cody,
Yes.
Ann Dixon,
Yes.
Deborah Bacon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carries, meeting adjourned. I just want to wish everybody stay safe and be careful, and we'll be speaking next week. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.